Hello, my name is Vincent Sattler, and today I will be showing the results of my personality test that I have taken on 16personalities.com. After taking the personality test, my character was an ENFJT, or known as the protagonist. In the next slide, I will be breaking down my 4 letters. On 16personalities.com, the 16 characters that they provide all have 4 letters that break down character traits. The first letter for a protagonist is E, which stands for extroverted. N is represented as an I, which stands for intuitive. F stands for feeling, J is judging, and lastly T is turbulent. On this slide, I compared my personality type versus the opposite of my personality type, which was virtuoso, or abbreviated as ESFP. The opposite letters are E for extroverted, S for sensing, F for feeling, and lastly P for perceiving. On the next slide, I will begin to talk about my strengths as a protagonist. As a protagonist, the first strength that is being stated is tolerant, meaning that protagonists together are team players. They are willing to listen to people's opinions when contradicting their own. We also admit we do not have all the answers, but we are willing to listen and find out. In my next slide, I'll be going over my next strength. A protagonist's second strength is being reliable, meaning that the other protagonists are able to take on challenges from other people without letting them down. The picture I chose was Patrick Mahomes, as he is reliable when doing his job to bring out the best game plan for his team to be successful. My third strength as a protagonist is being charismatic, which brings the ability to catch an audience and bring the mood to professional levels when presenting or communicating with others. We can also shift our tones to allow other people to speak while maintaining a voice of our own by communicating with reason, emotion, and restraint. The fourth strength that protagonist and myself have is being altruistic, which means that we desire to do good for others around us and people who are close to us. Being altruistic creates a mindset of bringing people together to create a greater good in everyone's daily lives. The second to last strength that protagonist acquires is being natural leaders, which means that we often put authority in other people than ourselves. This creates people to seek protagonists as leaders because they begin to admire our strong personalities and positive mindsets. Lastly, a strength that I found out myself was that protagonists are believers in people. I say this because often protagonists are leaders which push their trust into other people. The picture I chose is my favorite football team coming together and believing in one another to win the game. The next slide I will begin talking about is protagonist weaknesses. Personalities have their strengths, but they also have their weaknesses. As a protagonist, the first weakness is being too idealistic. This means that they can often think an outcome is going to be perfect and spread positivity to others. This may be great, but when things backfire, the situation affects the way people look at them. The second weakness of protagonists is being too selfless, that we often put others before us, and this can sometimes bury protagonists in promises for others, and this ends up affecting our happiness or even the ability to help others. The picture I used was a guy supporting his friend and disregarding the comfort and pain he's going through for him. The third weakness protagonists have is being too sensitive. This is a factor because protagonists are always doing things for other people. So when they do not like what we do for them, we often take it to heart. Protagonists also try to fix situations they can't and often worry if they could have helped. My fourth weakness, being a protagonist, is that we have a self-esteem that fluctuates very often. Protagonists often define who they are if they can live up to their ideals. If the protagonist is not feeling confident, they tend to take criticism to find out if they could have been better, or even fix the situation. My fifth weakness as being a protagonist is that we tend to struggle when making tough decisions. This can pose as an issue because we can imagine if we fail and this gets to us, it can cause issues when taking big decisions. I chose the picture of a guy in multiple paths to show that if a protagonist were in his shoes, they would often think of the bad instead of the good. The last and final weakness of being a protagonist is one that I found on my own, and it's taking things personally. I believe that many protagonists feel that if they do not win or aren't successful, they put it on themselves. In the next slide, I will talk about how protagonists stand in friendships. When it comes to friendships for protagonists, we put in effort maintaining the friendship. When we are meeting new people, we have no trouble talking with them and taking delight in learning about them. When others talked about their protagonist friends, they described them as warm, kind, and sincerely optimistic. In the next slide, I'll be talking about protagonists in parenthood. Parenthood for a protagonist is great. They often make great parents, and they try to find supportive and encouraging friends for their children. They also teach their children that you should rather follow your heart than anything else. Lastly, we take time to let our children learn and grow due to the high standards that we have for them. When it comes to careers for a protagonist, we often find a career where we can do what we love, which happens to be helping others. Careers that we are believed to take are religious work, teaching, counseling, and lastly, advising. In our careers, we also have great people skills and idealism, which helps shape situations. When protagonists are working, they like to be able to support people, which helps them thrive in many diverse roles. When it comes to making impressions, protagonists impress managers very quickly due to their hard-working mindsets, but this can also be a weakness as we tend to do so much for our clients and the people we work for. To conclude, I believe protagonists are good personalities others should surround themselves with. We may have our weaknesses, but those do not overcome the support and dedication protagonists will give you. I hope you have learned how protagonist personalities tend to be and what they stand for. Thank you.